Donald Trump issued 20 pardons and commutations yesterday, and the most gut-wrenching involved Blackwater guards, private contractors who had been convicted of killing civilians in Iraq. One of those civilians, by the way, was a 9-year-old boy who was sitting in the back of his parents' vehicle as these Blackwater security guards opened fire, used grenades, used machine guns in order to indiscriminately open fire on civilians in the area. There was also a doctor who was killed while driving his mother to an appointment. So to give you more details on how terrible this incident was back in 2007, the BBC writes that Nicholas Slatten, Paul Slough, Evan Liberty, and Dustin Heard opened fire in Baghdad's Nisoor Square in 2007 while guarding an American diplomatic convoy. Now, these 4 people were among 19 Blackwater private security contractors who were assigned to guard a convoy of 4 heavily armored vehicles carrying US personnel on September 16th of 2007. Now, according to the US Justice Department, at about noon that day, several of the contractors opened fire in and around Nisoor Square, a busy roundabout that was immediately adjacent to a heavily fortified green zone. So they had claimed that it's the same thing that we hear from cops in America, right? They claimed that they believed that someone was posing an imminent threat, that they needed to do something to protect the armored vehicles and to do their jobs. But there were quite a few witnesses there who ended up testifying in this case against these Blackwater private security contractors. When they stopped shooting, by the way, at least 14 Iraqi citizens were killed. They were dead. 10 men, 2 women, and 2 boys aged 9 and 11. Iraqi authorities put the toll at 17, but based on how the FBI investigated this, they said that there were at least 14 civilians who were killed in an illegal way. So there was an investigation into this, there was a trial. And so in 2014, a federal court found Slatten guilty of murder, while Slough, Liberty, and Heard were convicted of voluntary manslaughter, attempted manslaughter, and other charges. Slatten was sentenced to life in prison, and the other 3 were handed 30-year terms, although the other 3 later had their sentences reduced, 15 years for Slough, 14 for Liberty, and 12 for Heard. And so the point here is what they did was absolutely awful. And I want you guys to really visualize and understand how much this terrorized the local community there, how much this terrorized innocent civilians living in the area, many of whom had to witness the bloodshed that occurred that day during this massacre. So the New York Times had put out a video report on it back in 2014. I want to share some snippets of it with you right now. Let's take a quick look.
A barrage of bullets sprayed Nisoor Square, killing 17 Iraqis.
سيارة اللغ منها راجع other car Volkswagen نوع Volkswagen راجع خوفا وضربوه من وراء.
He was afraid and he was running. Then they hit him from the back.
وراسه مفتوح.
And his head was open like this.
Open. وشخص لابس جداشة ضاربيه بالصدر نازل.
Mr. Wesso is one of dozens of Iraqis interviewed by the New York Times who witnessed the now famous Blackwater incident and have reconstructed it in similar detail. Mr. Wesso's account is startling because he is staunchly pro-American and a member of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan Party.
حينما خلصوا بعد 20 دقيقة من الرمي المكثف انتهت ماكو مقاومة ضدهم. هو أصلاً ماكو مقاومة تدري.
US Army personnel who arrived shortly after the shooting said in a report that it appeared Blackwater guards shot at the fleeing vehicles. This video, obtained by the New York Times, supports those statements. It shows bullet-ridden vehicles pointed away from the square. The white truck appears to have been hit with a 40mm grenade, a weapon used exclusively by Americans.
And we don't have a graphic for this, but I do want to share an excerpt from the attorney who represented the victims in this trial. He wrote about the young boy, the 9-year-old who was shot and killed in this massacre. And his father, Mohammed, I mean, he's obviously devastated, not just by the fact that his son was murdered, but also by the fact that the person who murdered his son will be free pretty soon. Mohammed quickly, according to this excerpt from an Intercept piece that the attorney wrote, Mohammed quickly got out of the car and saw blood inside the rear window. Ali, his 9-year-old son, was slumped over against the glass. When Mohammed opened the door, his son fell toward him. As his skull opened and a large part of Ali's brain fell onto the pavement between his father's feet. Video of the aftermath includes an image of a human brain on the road in Nisoor Square. So that is what happened. That is a part of what happened on that day. And Donald Trump looks at those details and says, no, I'm gonna go ahead and pardon them. Eric Prince, the brother of Betsy DeVos, my education secretary, is the founder of Blackwater. And so favor for a favor, why not? Let's do it. Let's pardon these 4 people.
Yeah, why not? But doesn't it really put into perspective how fundamentally evil this entire endeavor was that we got into, that this event, that every detail that you learn just makes it more and more horrendous. The graphic that you read, actually when we covered it this morning, I didn't even read that because I just couldn't bear to. It was so horrible. But it puts it in perspective that this event, which is so singularly evil that you could make an entire movie about it, the vast majority of Americans probably didn't remember that this happened, that it was a case that was talked about years and years ago. Yeah, the rapidly fleeing vehicles must have posed a real threat as you were trying to kill everyone before they could get out of range of your weapons. But why should we expect anything else? They're private contractors that we gave the power of life and death, and they've been protected all along the way. You had to really go overboard to even temporarily now have suffered any consequences. And why should we be surprised, honestly, about the pardon? Like a year or 2 ago, we pardoned that guy. That there was an insurgent who was being treated medically, and the guy just took a knife, walked up and executed him. He stabbed the prisoner to death. They pardoned that guy, and that guy has become a minor celebrity on the right because he's a knife-wielding murderer. These people, at least they were in a combat zone. They can sort of pretend that there was something going on. These should be easy pardons for Donald Trump by comparison. And what do you know? The same advocate, which we're gonna get to, Pete Hegseth, was advocating for both groups of war criminals.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, the fact that the right wing can tell us that they're pro-life with a straight face while advocating for the release of these private military, like private, contractors. They're
mercenaries. They're mercenaries.
They're mercenaries. Yeah, thank you. Yes, exactly. They're mercenaries. Like the fact they're not part of the military. They were contracted as mercenaries to provide security, in Iraq. And all they really did in this particular case, and in others, by the way, this wasn't the only case where Blackwater did horrendous things in the Middle East. But in this particular case, I mean, the details are so gruesome, so awful. And how can the right wing on one hand say, no, we need to control the bodies of women because we're pro-life. And then on the other hand, celebrate the release of a murderers, right? One of whom was sentenced to life in prison. How do you celebrate that after he killed not 1, but 2 children and 12 other adults? And by the way, there were also many who were injured as a result of this as well. But they're pro-life.
Yeah, he's either they were lobbied to Trump, or my theory is that they are, him or Stephen Miller or whoever, they are looking for people like this to pardon, to send a signal to their base. If you murder the sorts of people that we hate and fear, then we're going to protect you. They did that with the Border Patrol in the same group. We've got the prior war criminals. He is, in every case that he can, he is trying to find people who've killed the right sorts of people. And he is sending a signal to the right that this is the person that you want. You want Trump because he is going to elevate these sorts of, from their point of view, heroes.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.